So when we are talking about the plane of expression and the plane of content, here we want to emphasize the idea that one and the same content can be expressed in different ways, and in a way style is the outside of content and content is inside the style. So the outside and inside of human body cannot be separated. The same is true of style and content. So stylistics requires, as we have already mentioned, understanding a fundamental division between what and why is communicated through language and how this is communicated. So form and content in discourse are one. So Bakhtin says in his work. Thus, form determines content and content determines form. At the same time, form for Bakhtin is a deeply subjective category. It is indissolubly connected with the author and the expression of his creative relationship towards the content. For many literary critics and linguists, style is the outside of content and content the inside of style. Now, we have already mentioned that stylistics largely inherited its theoretical foundations from contemporary literary criticism and linguistics. So what can stylistics tell us about literature? This question is always paralleled by an equally important question. What can stylistics tell us about language? So does stylistics belong to the realm of literary or linguistic studies? Bailey, in his book Introduction English Stylistics in the mid-20th century, states, stylistics, we feel, is one of the most international of literary and linguistic disciplines. Consequently, many scholars make a distinction between linguistic stylistics and literary stylistics. So linguostylistics and literary stylistics. Linguostylistics is a study of text from a linguistic orientation. For Carter and Simpson, linguistic stylistics is where practitioners attempt to derive from the study of style and language a refinement of models for the analysis of language, and thus to contribute to the development of linguistic theory. As for literary stylistics, in general, literary stylistics has implicitly or explicitly the goal of explaining the relation between language and the artistic function. So the motivating questions are not so much what is, why, and how. It is concerned with providing the basis for fuller understanding, appreciation, and interpretation of avowedly literary and author-centered texts. The general impulse will be to draw eclectically on linguistic insights and to use them in the service of what is generally claimed to be fuller interpretation of language effects than is possible without the benefit of linguistics. So Jeffrey Leach and Michael Short state, in general, literary stylistics, as we have already mentioned, implicitly or explicitly has a goal of explaining the relation between language and artistic function. And so the motivating questions are not so much what, is, why, and how. So from the linguist's angle, it is why does the author here choose to express himself in this particular way. From the critic's viewpoint, it is how is such and such an aesthetic effect achieved through language. So general stylistics takes upon much upon itself in terms of relation between language and literature. But we must not understand the above statements in such a way as if stylistics were concerned only with integration of language and literature. In that case, we must admit that, for example, business letters or scientific articles cannot be analyzed from a stylistic point of view. So stylistics is a branch of general linguistics, deals with the following main independent tasks. So it studies the totality of special linguistic means, stylistic devices, and expressive means, studies certain types of texts, certain types of discourse, and studies how to identify and name the distinguishing features of literary texts. So depending on the approach and the final aim, there can be observed several trends in style study. Common to all of them is the necessity to learn what the language can offer to serve the innumerable communicative tasks and purposes of language users, how various elements of the language participate in storing and transferring information, which of them carries which type of information, etc. So thus we can single out main trends of stylistic research. Functional stylistics. The term functional stylistics can be defined as a system of expressive means peculiar to a specific sphere of communication. The attention of functional stylistics is focused on the message in its correlation with the communicative situation. The message is common ground for communicants in an act of communication, an indispensable element in the exchange of information between two participants of the communicative act. The addresser, so the supplier of information, the speaker or the writer, and the addressee, the receiver of the information, so the listener or the reader. So below we shall present one of the rather widely accepted classifications, which singles out the following functional styles. Official style, represented in all kinds of official documents and papers. Scientific style, found in articles, monographs, and other scientific and academic publications. Publicist style, covering such genres as essay, feature article, most writings of new journalism, public speeches, etc. Newspaper style, observed in the majority of information materials printed in newspapers. Poetic style, embracing numerous genres of imaginative writing. Its object, correlation of the message and communicative situation. Style research within literary discourse, so individual style and styles of separate literary works. This trend puts particular emphasis on the study of an individual author's style. According to Galperin, individual style, therefore, is a unique combination of language units, expressive means, and stylistic devices peculiar to a given writer, which makes the writer's works or even utterances easily recognizable. Critics usually speak about the influences that exert the pressure on a writer's style. So the writer's personality and the way of thinking determining the mode of expression, historical and cultural context, the age in which the writer lives, and a particular genre which tends to dictate the style. there are two main directions in the stylistic analysis. Analysis from the author's point of view, which is called encoding stylistics, and from the reader's point of view, decoding stylistics. So stylistics of decoding can be presented in the following way. So sender, then message, so the text, and receiver. So speaker, book, and reader. And stylistics of foregrounding. So the word foregrounding is itself foregrounded here, as you can see. It stands out perceptually as a consequence of the fact that it deviates graphologically from the text which surrounds it in a number of ways. So foregrounding is the ability of a verbal element to obtain extra significance, to say more in a definite context. The theory of foregrounding is probably the most important theory within stylistic analysis, and it is assumed that foregrounding analysis is the most important part of the stylistic analysis of any text. And the final goal of stylistics and of our course is, of course, stylistic analysis. So with the help of stylistic analysis, we can explore language, so explore creativity in language use.